Atlas 1 Flight 104. Radio check. Federal airspace is active. Confirm readiness for departure. You're established at cruise. Weather ahead is clear. Proceed direct to waypoint. Intelligence.
Welcome back to the Federal Subcontractor Blueprint. I'm John Cornish.
And I'm Maya Chen. Welcome back. If you've listened to the first 3 episodes, you've already learned something that many companies never discover. Winning subcontracting opportunities doesn't begin when a solicitation is posted. It begins months, even years earlier.
Exactly. Most businesses spend their mornings searching for new opportunities on sam.gov. There's nothing wrong with that. But today, I'd like to suggest something different. What if I told you the best opportunity for your company isn't the solicitation that's posted today? What if it's the company that won a contract 6 months ago?
That's an interesting way to think about it. Why would yesterday's award matter more than today's solicitation?
Because awards leave clues. Every federal contract tells a story. Who won? Who trusted them? How much funding was provided? How long they'll be performing? Where they'll be performing? And perhaps most importantly, who they're likely to need as subcontractors. That's where we're going today.
Before we dive in, let me frame this for listeners who are newer to the series. In Episode 1, we established that small businesses absolutely belong in federal contracting. In Episode 2, we talked about understanding the market and having a plan. In Episode 3, we discussed trust, how relationships are built before opportunities ever appear.
And today, Episode 4, is where everything starts to connect. Because now we're going to talk about intelligence, not the kind you need a security clearance for, the kind that's sitting in public databases right now, waiting for someone smart enough to look.
This is the episode where we stop talking about mindset and start talking about methodology.
Welcome to the flight deck. Let's start with a question. Suppose you're the owner of a logistics company. Would you rather compete against 50 companies for one solicitation, or build a relationship with the company that's already been selected to perform the work?
Most people automatically choose the solicitation because that's what they've been taught. You search sam.gov, you find an opportunity, you respond. That's the process.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that process. But experienced business developers often think differently. Instead of chasing every opportunity, they study winners. Because winners create ecosystems.
What do you mean by ecosystems?
Large federal contracts aren't performed by one company. They're performed by teams. Those teams include transportation providers, warehouse operators, IT specialists, medical logistics firms, security providers, aircraft operators, engineering companies, professional services firms, regional partners, and hundreds of specialized subcontractors. When a prime contractor wins a 5-year contract worth $200 million, they don't just perform it themselves. They assemble a team. And that team needs partners.
So today's lesson isn't about finding contracts. It's about finding the companies that are most likely to need partners.
Exactly. We're going to follow the money because money leaves footprints. And if you know where to look, those footprints lead directly to your next opportunity.
I want to pause here because I think this is a really important shift in thinking. Most small business owners are taught to search for opportunities, but what you're describing is searching for relationships.
That's exactly right. And here's why that matters. When you respond to a solicitation, you're one of dozens, sometimes hundreds of companies, all competing for the same thing. But when you approach a prime contractor who just won a major award, you're not competing against anyone. You're offering to help them succeed.
That changes the entire dynamic of the conversation.
It completely changes it. You go from being a bidder to being a partner. And partners have a very different relationship with prime contractors than subcontractors who showed up after the solicitation was posted.
So the intelligence comes first, the relationship comes second, and the opportunity follows naturally.
Now we're flying. Here's today's first executive lesson. Don't begin by searching for work. Begin by searching for companies that have already been trusted with the work.
That single change in thinking can completely transform your business development strategy.
And it's not just a theory. Let me give you a real-world analogy. Imagine you're looking for a house. You could drive around every neighborhood looking for sale signs. That's one approach. Or you could look at which neighborhoods have the highest property values, the strongest school districts, and the most new construction. You study the market first, then you focus your search.
And government contracting works the same way.
Exactly. The companies that are winning contracts right now are the ones creating the most subcontracting opportunities. If you know who they are, where they're performing, and what types of work they're doing, you can position yourself to be the partner they need before they even start looking.
So let's talk about how to actually do this. Where does a small business owner go to find this kind of intelligence?
That brings us to today's platform spotlight, and this one is important.
Let's open the first platform every federal subcontractor should understand, usaspending.gov.
What makes it so valuable?
Because it's public, it's free, and it's one of the best intelligence platforms available to anyone willing to spend 30 minutes learning how to use it. Think of it as the federal government's financial scoreboard.
Every award creates data. That data becomes intelligence, and intelligence becomes opportunity.
What kind of information can listeners expect to find?
Quite a bit. Agency names, prime contractors, award values, performance periods, locations, award history, contract numbers, modifications, funding trends, and recurring buying patterns. If you know how to read the data, you can see which companies are growing, which agencies are spending, and which types of work are expanding.
And all of this is available to the public.
Every bit of it. The federal government is required to publish this information. It's mandated by law. The Federal Funding, Accountability, and Transparency Act of 2006 requires that all federal spending data be made available to the public. So this isn't hidden information. It's just information that most small business owners don't know how to use.
Yet.
Until today. Let me walk you through how to actually use usaspending.gov. Because the site can feel overwhelming at first, there's a lot of data, but once you know where to look, it becomes incredibly powerful.
So where do we start?
You start with a simple search. Go to usaspending.gov and click on the Awards tab. From there, you can filter by several different fields. The most useful ones for subcontractors are awarding agency, principal place of performance, and award amount.
Let me make sure I understand. If I'm a logistics company based in Virginia, I could search for all logistics-related contracts awarded in my area.
Exactly, and that's where the power becomes clear. Let's say you search for contracts awarded by the Department of Defense in Virginia with a value over $5 million. You'll see a list of every contract that matches those criteria, and for each one, you'll see who won it.
The prime contractor.
The prime contractor. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let's say you see that a company called Sterling Federal Solutions just won a $37 million logistics contract with the Army. That's intelligence. That tells you several things.
First, the Army is spending money on logistics in Virginia.
Correct. Second, Sterling Federal Solutions is now responsible for performing that work. They have a team to assemble. They have deliverables to meet. They have a customer to satisfy.
And they probably need subcontractors.
Almost certainly. Large prime contractors almost always use subcontractors for specialized work. Transportation, warehousing, medical supply chain, IT support, security, maintenance. The list goes on.
So instead of waiting for Sterling to post a subcontracting opportunity on sam.gov, I could be reaching out to them right now, introducing my company, understanding their needs, building the relationship before the opportunity appears.
And that's the difference between reactive and proactive business development. Reactive is waiting for solicitations. Proactive is studying the market and positioning yourself before the solicitation ever exists.
That's a fundamentally different approach.
It is, and it's the approach that the most successful subcontractors use. They don't wait for opportunities to find them. They go find the companies that create opportunities. Now let me give you a real-world example. Let's say you own a small IT services company. You've done some state and local government work, you have a few employees, and you want to break into federal contracting.
Where would you start?
I'd start on usaspending.gov. I'd search for IT services contracts awarded in the last 12 months. I'd filter by agencies that are known for heavy IT spending: the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the General Services Administration.
And what would you expect to find?
You'd find dozens, maybe hundreds of awards, and for each one, you'd see the prime contractor. Now here's the key. You're not trying to compete with those prime contractors. You're trying to understand the ecosystem.
Explain that.
When you see that Booz Allen Hamilton won a $50 million cybersecurity contract with DHS, you now know something important. DHS is investing in cybersecurity. Booz Allen is performing the work. And Booz Allen needs subcontractors with specialized capabilities.
So you research Booz Allen, you look at their past performance, you understand their capabilities, and then you figure out where your company fits.
Exactly. Maybe your company specializes in endpoint security, or cloud migration, or identity management. Those are all capabilities that a prime contractor like Booz Allen might need as part of their team.
And instead of competing against Booz Allen for the prime contract, you're positioning yourself as a partner who can help them deliver.
That's the shift. You go from competitor to collaborator, and that's a much stronger position for a small business.
I want to highlight something here. This approach doesn't require any special tools or expensive software. usaspending.gov is free. The data is public. The only investment is your time and your ability to read the data.
And that's what makes it so powerful. The barrier to entry isn't money, it's knowledge. And today, we're removing that barrier.
Let me also mention something practical. When you find a prime contractor you want to approach, don't just send a cold email saying, "We'd like to work with you." That's the networking equivalent of knocking on someone's door and asking to borrow their car.
Instead, do your homework. Read their press releases. Understand their contract. Identify where your capabilities align with their needs. Then craft a message that shows you understand their mission and you have something specific to offer.
That's the difference between being remembered and being ignored.
Let me walk through the 4 steps of intelligence gathering using usaspending.gov. These are the steps that I recommend every small business owner follow.
Step 1.
Find awards in your field. Search by NAICS code, keyword, or industry. If you're in logistics, search for logistics, transportation, supply chain, warehousing. If you're in IT, search for cybersecurity, cloud services, software development, help desk support. Find the awards that match what you do.
Step 2.
Identify the prime contractors. For each award that matches your capabilities, write down the name of the prime contractor, how much the contract is worth, which agency awarded it, where the work is being performed, and how long the performance period lasts.
Step 3.
Research those companies. Go to their websites, read their capabilities statements, look at their teaming pages, see if they have a supplier diversity program, check if they attend industry events, find out who their small business liaison is.
And step 4.
Build a targeted outreach list. Don't try to contact every prime contractor you find. Focus on the ones that are the best fit. Companies that perform work in your geographic area. Companies that have contracts in your specific capability area. Companies that have a track record of working with subcontractors.
That 4th step is really important. Not every prime contractor works well with subcontractors. Some try to do everything in-house. Others actively seek out partners. You want to find the ones that value collaboration.
And how do you find those?
Look at their subcontracting plans. When a prime contractor wins a contract over a certain threshold, they're required to submit a subcontracting plan to the government. That plan outlines how they intend to use small businesses. If a company has a strong subcontracting plan, that's a signal that they're serious about building teams.
You can also look at their past performance. If a company has a history of working with the same subcontractors over multiple contracts, that tells you they value long-term relationships.
And that brings us back to episode 3, trust before opportunity. The companies that maintain long-term subcontractor relationships are the ones that prioritize trust.
Everything connects. The intelligence leads to the relationship leads to the opportunity, and the opportunity leads to performance.
And performance leads to more intelligence, because once you've performed on a contract, you now have data of your own. Past performance, references, track record, and that makes you more competitive for the next opportunity.
It's a cycle, and it starts with intelligence. Let me tell you something about my personal experience with usaspending.gov. When I first started Marshall Davis Medical Logistics, I didn't know this platform existed. I was doing what most people do, searching sam.gov every morning, looking for opportunities, and competing against dozens of other companies for the same work.
What changed?
A mentor told me something that completely shifted my thinking. He said, "Stop looking for contracts, start looking for contractors." At first, I didn't understand, but then he showed me how to use usaspending.gov, and everything changed.
How so?
I realized that the companies winning the contracts I wanted were not unreachable. They were right there in the data. I could see their names, their contract values, their performance periods, their locations. And I could start building relationships with them before they ever posted a subcontracting opportunity.
So what did you do with that information?
I made a list. I identified the top 10 prime contractors in my area that were performing medical logistics work. I researched each one. I understood their capabilities. I identified where MDML could add value. And then I reached out.
Cold outreach?
Not exactly. I didn't just send an email saying, "Hey, we'd love to work with you." I sent a capabilities statement that specifically addressed the work they were performing. I showed them that I understood their contract, their mission, and their challenges, and I offered specific solutions.
That's very different from a generic capabilities statement.
It is, and it worked. Within 6 months, I had meetings with 3 of those 10 companies. Within a year, I was performing subcontract work for 2 of them, and those relationships led to more opportunities, more past performance, and more growth.
And it all started with public data.
It all started with usaspending.gov.
I think that's a powerful story because it shows the practical application of everything we've been discussing. It's not theory. It's not a motivational speech. It's a real methodology that produces real results.
And it's available to anyone. You don't need a special clearance. You don't need expensive software. You don't need a team of analysts. You need 30 minutes, a notepad, and the willingness to do your homework. Let me share something else that I think is important. When you're looking at data on usaspending.gov, there are specific fields that deserve extra attention.
Tell me about those.
First, contract modifications. When you see a contract that's been modified multiple times, that tells you something. It means the scope of work is evolving. The agency is adding requirements. The prime contractor is likely expanding their team, and that means more subcontracting opportunities.
So modifications are actually good signals.
They're excellent signals. A contract that starts at $10 million and gets modified to $15 million over the first year is a contract that's growing. And growing contracts create growing teams.
What else should we watch for?
Performance periods. If a contract has a 5-year performance period with option years, that tells you this is a long-term engagement. The prime contractor is going to need reliable partners for the duration. That's a much better opportunity than a one-year contract that might not get renewed.
And location.
Location is critical. If you're a small business in San Antonio and you see that a prime contractor just won a major contract at Fort Sam Houston, that's your backyard. You have a geographic advantage. You can offer local support, rapid response, and on-site presence that a company based in Virginia can't match.
That's a really important point. Geographic proximity matters in government contracting, especially for logistics, maintenance, and support services.
It does. And usaspending.gov shows you exactly where the work is being performed, so you can find opportunities in your area without guessing.
Let me also mention something about NAICS codes and PSC codes. These are the classification systems the government uses to categorize contracts. NAICS codes describe the industry. PSC codes describe the product or service. If you know your codes, you can search much more precisely.
For example, if you're in medical logistics, your NAICS codes might include 493110 for general warehousing, 484110 for general freight trucking, or 621999 for all other miscellaneous ambulatory healthcare services. Knowing these codes lets you target your search much more effectively.
And the more targeted your search, the more relevant your results.
Exactly. You're not looking for every contract in America. You're looking for the contracts that match your specific capabilities. And usaspending.gov gives you the tools to do that.
Let me ask you something directly. If you were starting a small business today and you wanted to break into federal contracting, how would you use usaspending.gov in your first 30 days?
Great question. Day 1 through 7, I'd spend time just learning the platform, exploring the search functions, understanding the data fields, getting comfortable with the interface. Don't try to make any decisions yet, just learn.
Day 8 through 14.
I'd run my first targeted searches. I'd search for contracts in my industry, in my geographic area, with values that suggest subcontracting potential. Generally, contracts over $2 million are large enough that the prime contractor is likely using subcontractors.
Day 15 through 21.
I'd build my target list. I'd identify the top 10 to 15 prime contractors that appear most frequently in my search results. I'd research each one. I'd understand their capabilities, their contract history, and their teaming approach.
And day 22 through 30.
I'd begin outreach, but not generic outreach, targeted, informed, specific outreach. Each communication would reference the company's actual work, their specific contracts, their mission, and how my company could help them deliver.
That's a 30-day intelligence sprint.
It is. And at the end of that sprint, you'll know more about your market than most of your competitors, because most of your competitors are still searching sam.gov and hoping for the best.
There's one more thing I want to add. usaspending.gov also shows you which agencies are spending money in your area. That's important because agency spending patterns reveal priorities. If the Department of Veterans Affairs is increasing spending on medical logistics in your region, that tells you something about where the next opportunities will come from.
Spending patterns are predictive. If you see an agency increasing its budget for a particular type of work, you can reasonably expect more contracts in that area over the next 12 to 24 months.
So you're not just looking at what happened, you're predicting what will happen.
That's the difference between intelligence and information. Information tells you what happened. Intelligence tells you what it means.
And that's what we're building here. Not just a capability to find contracts, a capability to understand the market.
Let me leave you with this thought. The federal government spends over $600 billion on contracts every year. More than half of that spending goes to companies that use subcontractors. That means there are hundreds of billions of dollars in subcontracting opportunities flowing through the federal marketplace every single year.
And the companies that know how to find those opportunities aren't necessarily the biggest or the most experienced. They're the ones that do the work. They study the data, they build relationships, and they show up prepared.
That's the flight deck intelligence for today.
Experience provides perspective.
Intelligence reveals the pattern.
And together, they create executive clarity.
This has been the Federal Subcontractor Blueprint, an Atlas One Executive Podcast Network original series. I'm John Cornish.
And I'm Maya Chen. For more information, visit marshalldavisml.com. Until next time, keep flying smart.
Atlas One Flight 104, mission complete. Flight data recorded. Welcome home. This has been the Federal Subcontractor Blueprint, an Atlas One Executive Podcast Network original series. For more information, visit marshalldavisml.com. Until next time, keep flying smart.